when you're standing in the lobby, you know, this catwalk will be above or behind you. But when you're outside of the building, looking through that very transparent glazing, you will see that 2-foot thickness of the catwalk. And I said, okay, what if that's a deal killer, architects? And they said, if you don't want to obstruct the view, you could create separate circulation to the balcony of the auditorium, stage right and stage left. But that's 2 sets of stairs and 2 sets of elevators, as opposed to 1 set, and then you use this catwalk to get, you know, to either side of the balcony, which increases the cost. They also felt that this crossover would give you this almost like this upper platform viewing opportunity of the upper part of the mural that you actually don't get today, right? Where it's at.
You get it.
Kind of.
There's another
Kind of, sort of.
gallery.
There is.
There is none.
Working on it.
Okay.
It's very
It's hidden.
Well,
But there's no
so
difference.
then, if we don't want that catwalk, then you wouldn't have that upper viewing that you do enjoy today. So there's a balance here. What they did say is that the guardrails, they could design it to be very transparent, you know, glass and stuff, so that there's not further bulkiness to the obstruction. It really would just be like the slab and the beam. That would be the visual obstruction. So I would love to, I think that's an important thing for us to discuss and to give feedback, because another elevator, another stair will definitely change the cost profile of this project.
Again, though, if is the catwalk or the lobby, do either of those positions give you an angle at which you can see the entire mural at once? I think that's kind of the key question in my mind, because that was the single biggest issue with its current location, is that you can't see the whole mural at once the way it's designed to be seen. So I'm just wondering if the new plans address that, or if they don't.
I think it's having the depth to see it.
Right, exactly. So it's hard for me to tell, looking at this, imagining, I don't know if we,
Yeah, it looks
if
pretty
this,
narrow.
yeah, it looks like you can
Like
get pretty
25
close to it to me, but it's hard to tell.
It was meant to be all at once from outside. It was to be a reading room. It was meant, it had other side panels that were never painted. So in one hand, it was meant to be a very close experience that you were surrounded. The depth part of it, you can see being on the original plans, is from outside, not depth from inside the building, if I'm hearing the question. It was never intended to be
Well,
seen
I'm-
at depth
yeah,
within the
my
building,
question is-
but from outside, yeah.
Well,
Right.
then if that's the case, I would just say from what you're describing, that's a very unfortunate visual element. If you're now saying that the design was to be on the outside to look at it, then that long horizontal element is gonna become a part of the viewing experience, which,
So it looks like it's about a 30-foot deep lobby to me. So that's much deeper than the current.
Top double.
Would it be possible to get some sort of mock-up or rendering or VR or model or something that gives us a realistic sort of preview of what it would look like to experience the mural in that space?
Yeah, I've already asked them for an elevation. If you can show,
Okay.
you know, that superimposes the mural with that catwalk in front of it.
Okay.
that'd be my only comment. I mean, it's wonderful that it's gonna be able to be viewed from the outside, that's great, but I mean, if it's, as we're describing it, just knowing what that depth is
And
that
honestly,
fits.
yeah, honestly, I'd be happy with either being able to see the whole thing from the platform or being able to see the whole thing from outside, as long as there's some place where you can see the mural the way it was designed to be seen. So whether that happens on that catwalk or whether it happens by standing out on the street, I think it's important to somehow make that happen.
All right, it's 10:45, let's see how far we've gone. We got to this part, page 17. So there are more elevations. and makes room for some, well, visual interest, but also usable functional courtyard space. This is what that's showing. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so then they needed to start showing the exterior skin materials, again, so that the cost estimators had a basis of what kind of material are we talking about. Are we talking about a fiber C type of material, or stucco, or trespa, or just whatever the skin of the building is going to be, because that affects the cost estimate. So this is their way of showing that here in these next few pages. You see their notes. Those are their notes. Sealed concrete walls behind screen, etc. Concrete wall. And they actually have a section of the narrative later on, the pages we haven't gotten to, that has a cheat sheet for the acronyms. So they realized that they had used acronyms before they actually defined them. So the final document, they may change the order of some of these sheets.
And are they still talking about a green roof of some kind?
Well, so at one of the recent board meetings, you know, we did talk, I know you were there, Amanda,
Yeah.
we did talk about the concept of a green roof, and a green roof,
It's kind of passe
in
now.
theory, makes a lot of sense because it adds insulation value. It provides a microbiome for the local bugs and birds and stuff, rats. It does it absorbs rainwater and slows the velocity of rainwater out to the local watersheds. And again, when rainwater falls and goes through hard pipe and makes its way into the local watersheds, the volume of water really affects the watershed ecosystem. And so slowing down the water by creating absorbing materials like a green roof, or creating filtration and you know, you could do it with hard pipe and with you know, underground tanks to essentially just slow the velocity of rainwater going into the watersheds. A green roof is one way to do it. You look at Piano Renzo's Academy of Science, very successful green roof because it's architecturally interesting. You can see it from the ground, see it and enjoy it from the ground plane. You can go up, and it's part of this museum. It's part of the curriculum. It's part of the program. Our MUB has a green roof that absolutely nobody enjoys, right? So I think the idea is to maybe not have a green roof on here, and to save the cost,
Well, that's what I was wondering.
and to put the water filtration at the ground level, where you can create some landscape and curriculum program space for everything I just talked about. You know, geography classes could actually learn from those water filtration, you know, areas at the ground level versus if it's on the roof. Okay, you've seen this before. You saw this, right? Okay, so outline specifications. So this again is the part that the cost estimator needs that cannot be shown graphically. So it's the words that describe the materials, or the design of the basis of design of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil systems. It also defines a target of LEED Gold certification. LEED is an acronym for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And although our Board of Trustees has not mandated LEED certification, it has been the direction we've gone in with many of our newest buildings, and it is the right thing to do. So as a starting point, especially if we're chasing state funds, we're gonna ask for it.
But the previous plan, we were almost at gold, and there were some certificate sign-offs based on the plan. Will that carry over a little bit?
Well,
So we went through a whole bunch of meetings with the lead people.
right, yeah, well, there's lead consultants.
Well, I mean the ones that signed off for certificates, and they did sign off some because obviously the building wasn't built, but according to the plan, we were heading for the goal.
Right, so LEED has checklists, and it's all a point-based system. And there's basic certification, silver, gold, and platinum, and it's just a point differentiating. The more points you can chase, the more points that you can achieve through the design and construction, the greater the certification level. So, to my knowledge, Madeline, an application for LEED certification was not submitted and opened with U.S. Green Building Council, but they might have been using the checklists.
Using what?
They might have been using the checklist to figure out how many points they were getting.
A certificate somewhere in my files.
Well, you don't
But
get
it was-
certification
it was
until
very
you
low
build the
level.
building.
Huh?
You do, the U.S. Green Building Council doesn't issue you
No,
certification
they
until
start
you,
doing it.
until you finish the building.
Yeah, yeah.
And your measurement verification requirements have been completed.
I
That
just
they
wonder if
don't
we could get a few points ahead of the game.
get it.
A few points ahead of the game by, well, and the whole HVAC system that the geothermal wells, that got us points, it got mud points.
It does.
When it finished.
It
But that
does.
was the PAC system,
That's right.
and so the PAC
good
generated
news,
points.
great news. So we have a 700-ton geothermal HVAC plant that was constructed with the MUB. The mechanical parts of it, the pipes and the pumps and that kind of stuff is in the basement in the mechanical room of the MUB. And the geothermal wells are in the parking lot to the west of the MUB. There's hundreds of wells that go down. And essentially it's a heat exchange with earth that provides constant temperature that is used to essentially not necessarily heat and cool the MUB the way traditional HVAC systems mechanically heat and cool, but to create the cool water loop that is the constant temperature of the earth. So that plant is 700 tons, and it is large enough. It was designed to be large enough to support the MUB and the PAEC. And our mechanical engineer confirmed that there's enough capacity to support the rest of the arts neighborhood as well, which is great news.
And that should give us points.
It'll give you points. Okay, so again, they're showing, and here's the thing, this can be confusing, what the board's resolution calls phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 versus what, when most people think of phase 1 and 2 and 3, you think 1 comes before 2 and 2 comes before 3. So you just have to keep in mind what the board how the board defined phase 1, 2, and 3 versus how it's called in this outline specification. The narrative assumes phase 1 is the AEC building and the site work, all the underground utility infrastructure, and that phase 2 would be the PAC building, the auditorium, the red part of the building below, south of grid line 10, and the site development around it. And then the parking garage, even though we've shown it, for context purposes, it's not part of this cost estimate. The state will not pay for parking. They just don't pay for parking. So this, again, is stuff that people in my design and construction industry are really familiar with. You might have never seen it. Don't worry so much about it, but read it if you want to. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Again, it goes into the materials and the basis of design for architectural, for civil. So my note is, when they talk about utilities shown and stuff to within 10 feet of the building, I'm asking the question, I'm challenging it and saying, well, but then what happens beyond 10 feet? Like, what project's gonna carry that cost? Let's make this project carry the cost. Again, optimizing the state fund, potential state funding. So those are the nature of my notes here, but utility in terms of stormwater and getting stormwater retention. And then this is mechanical and electrical. And again, they confirm the geothermal plant capacity is adequate for mechanical. They talk about how the mechanical system will work, the basis of design for mechanical in this arts neighborhood. I'm gonna go through this pretty quickly. In terms of plumbing systems, they made assumptions without having discussions with me, which is it's a starting point, right, for us to react to. about a new 3-inch service, a new 3-inch water service. I'm just correcting their assumptions because with our $63 million utility infrastructure project for Ocean Campus, we'll be, putting some of those utilities, we'll be doing make-ready work for the master plan. So I wanna make sure that the basis of design assumes what we believe we're gonna be doing with our utility infrastructure project. So that's the water part. I'm sorry, let me go back just a second. So this is now the basis of design for the electrical systems. And again, I'm telling them instead of assuming it's 277,480 new service from PG&E, I don't want another service here. Just grab the 12 kV that we're gonna have in our new plant that'll be just to the east of the Student Health Center. Let's see, this is a duplicate. They actually had, let me go back here, they had an extra section duplicate in here, so we get past that. Okay, cost estimate.
Drum roll.
So, Directional Logic is the consultant that LMNTEF hired to do the cost estimate. Directional Logic is a several-year-old firm. All the people who are at Directional Logic came from Davis Langdon. Davis Langdon was the cost estimator that LMNTEF had used ever since we engaged them on the PAEC project. So the people, Alistair at Directional Logic has been there from day one. So he was with Davis Langdon before, now he's with Directional Logic. So we have real consistency and continuity through the cost estimating of this project. And that note just sort of says so. Okay, so how many of you are real experts at reading construction cost estimates? Yeah. It's wonky, jargony stuff again, and I apologize for that, but it's here, and I encourage you to take a look at it, but it states out what are the assumptions, the cost estimate, and what's the basis of the estimate, what does it include, what does it not include. Again, it shows the schedule, and this schedule will be adjusted per the schedule at the beginning of LMNTEF's packet to align with state funding, and that affects the cost estimate because construction gets more expensive over time. So we're actually pulling this in to align with state funding by several months, which will help to not have as much of an inflationary impact on the project. It's drops in the bucket overall, but every bit helps. Okay. So there's 2 different sections. This is the overall summary, and then the subsequent 29 pages are all the detail. But the summary is where we're probably going to end today.
Is this all on your website now?
It's not on the website, and we can talk about whether it should be on the website or whether we want to.
Well, how do we read it?
Well, I would make it available. We'll figure out how to make it available to you, whether you want it via email or whether I set up a OneDrive for it or whether I should post it on the website somewhere. So here's the arts education complex portion, and here's the performing arts center portion. Okay, so north of grid line 10, south of grid line 10. These are in thousands of dollars. You can see that it's times 1,000, so that means $78 million to build it as shown. Let me make this a little bit wider so it's good. And then the cost escalation over time, because these are today's dollars. So just south of $94 million for the stuff north of grid line 10. This is construction cost. This does not include all the soft costs that you have to also have. So that's not a final number. This is part of, I always get concerned when people are looking at cost estimates because you have to know what you're looking at, and this does not include soft costs. Okay.
And can you, just soft costs are the stuff that goes in it?
Design,
No.
permitting, inspection, group 2 furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Yeah.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's everything that's not construction.
Got it.
So generally speaking, on a project like this, the construction cost is 70% of what it'll take to actually build the thing. So north of grid line 10, $94 million construction cost. South of grid line 10, $62 million. Madeline, you were concerned before about not having seen the cost estimates associated with the auditorium portion. And remember, we pushed restrooms and a lot of the mechanical and support spaces north of grid line 10, and we pushed all, a huge portion of the site utility infrastructure north of grid line 10. If we were to build the auditorium first, some of those costs would now come first. And it would be 62 million plus that added scope because we're front loading the auditorium plus the soft costs that aren't included, which is why I say that the consultants have recommended this strategy.
Well, and I see that number is the date up to 2022, the 51 million is if you did it sooner. I don't know, I'm looking at the numbers for the first time.
Even if you started today, you would still have construction cost escalation? Okay, so again.
But it says the start date to 2022 is the lower figure, right? Am I reading that right? The 62 is 2022 when you start. There has to be some difference if you started before 2022.
There is. So if you